Welcome to the Grap Up, your monthly blast of cold takes on the world of professional wrestling. Available everywhere good podcasts are sold. I'm your party host. I'm the intrepid traveler. I am Mark Robinson. With me, as always, he is the editor over at the Wrestling Observer. He is Bryan Rose. Bryan, WrestleMania, once again, the granddaddy of them all. We're once more around the
Yeah.
sun. It feels like WrestleMania, like even though obviously, and I can kind of like tie this to most things, Christmas, holidays, birthdays. You feel like a year is a long way away, but then before you know it, oh, the next one's here. Oh, we've done a dance around the sun again, and it feels like it
Yeah.
gets quicker and quicker with every year, and I don't like that.
Yeah, it's a part of aging, I guess. These things used to feel like so far away when we were younger. Like the time between WrestleMania and 17 and 18, for example, that felt like the longest time possible. But here it's like I still remember WrestleMania when Cody returned a couple of years ago. I feel like that was very recent. But that is weird. I guess it's just a matter of time and aging and all that, and how everything just seems now to go by really fast.
Yeah.
Like I'm stunned that we're in now, like almost in the middle of April. I still remember. I feel like Christmas was just a few weeks ago.
Yeah, it's all the more traumatizing for me at the moment because I've set myself like a hard deadline on when I want to have my game released, and that's under a year now that I've set,
Yeah.
and like 9-10 months is still a fair amount of time, but it's also really not. Like those months just go flying by. So if you see me on Twitter or elsewhere, sporadically just losing my mind, no, you are now have been made aware of why that is. How are you doing, Bryan? We were just talking off air, but you've kind of said on Twitter as well that you've got a new puppy, and
I do.
I am delighted for you.
Uh, yeah. But on the other hand, it's like it's fun having a puppy around because they're always very interesting. At the same time, he's a little terror. He loves to jump and run around and play, and that's all fun. But when it's at 2 in the morning, I'm like, you need to go to bed. But no, it's fun. I just not used to having such an energetic puppy because the puppy that I previously had, Bowser, 12 years ago, he died in April. Or not April, February. He died in February, but we had him for 12 years. And I remember when he was a puppy, he would always have just go around and sit somewhere and be quiet for hours at a time. He was always a very um, lonerish kind of dog. And this dog isn't. He cries if I leave the room for more than a few minutes. He's very vocal and very loud, and he'll howl, which I wasn't expecting. Um, yeah, it's all a lot, and I know it's all part of being a puppy and having that puppy stage where they get into everything and chew on everything and have what seems like an unlimited amount of energy, but hopefully in the coming months he'll calm down a little and yeah, I'm just kind of like waiting for the puppy phase to already be over, but it's all a part of taking care of a puppy and raising it and making sure everything's okay, and that's the part I was always good at with puppies. So it's
This is
fun,
this is
but I'm
why I
exhausted.
always this is why I'd always maintain for cats because there's only about an
Yeah,
hour of the day you
they're
have to
much
deal
more
with that.
independent.
Yeah, they'll
Bowser was
sleep
very
20 hours.
Bowser was very cat-like, and like he will just go to his crate and sleep there for hours. This dog hates his crate. He will cry at me at 6 in the morning, wanting out. Um, it's like night and day, and it's just I'm doing all this during WrestleMania weekend, which is one of the most insane schedules humanly possible. And let's just say after WrestleMania weekend was over, I was so happy because I could finally maybe go to sleep at like 1 in the morning instead of like 3 at the morning.
Yeah.
But even last night I was up at 3 in the morning, so it never ends. But
how does like your job and I guess the Wrestling Observer as a whole, like coming up to WrestleMania week, do you kind of like sit down as a team and sort of like prep for like, okay, this is how we're going to approach it, this is what we're going to do, or is it just all hands on deck, hope for the best that
it's
we make
usually
it
an
through?
all hands on deck kind of deal,
Yeah.
especially on Saturday and Sunday where everyone was there doing stuff. Friday was a little different. We kind of had our wires crossed, but we got through it and we did everything. The only thing that really annoyed me about WrestleMania weekend was Collision. Collision has to exist on Saturdays. It has to be there. It has to air. And I quite frankly do not like Collision because often, maybe there's like one or two good matches, two competitive matches, but most of that show feels like Saturday night where I'm watching this big star wrestle this other star who always does the job, and I'm sure the match is very nice, but in the end, do I need to sit here on a Saturday night with so much more going on watching WCW Saturday Night?
Though
No.
that show did a shockingly good rating.
I was stunned. It aired at I think 11:30 Eastern, right after WrestleMania, and it actually did a very good number. That's because nobody usually nobody's up at that hour, but I guess they're all still off the WrestleMania high, although that main event
I don't
first
know
night.
who would have wanted to
I
watch
I,
any more wrestling after that main event, but we'll get to
I
that.
we'll get to that,
Yeah.
but I guess a lot of people because they all watched Collision. So yeah, that was the only part of WrestleMania weekend. And then while I was doing Collision posts, um, they contacted me and said, no, they're actually going to air that footage. They're actually going to air the footage from All In. And I'm like, oh, great. And it was exactly after I posted the Dynamite post. So I had to take it down and I had to completely redo it and I had to put it back up and then I had to do video and then I don't like Collision. If Collision didn't exist, WrestleMania weekend would have been fine for the most part. But no,
What's
it
worse, the
exists.
Collision show or the TNA Friday special shows that they do?
I ignore those. So
Okay,
it
uh,
doesn't
fair
matter to
enough.
me. Look. I am sure TNA is doing a lot of cool stuff right now. Some of the people on there are great. I don't have time to cover that. SmackDown's on Fridays. Much more important shows are on Fridays. I am sure we do like a like new. I don't cover it. I think other people cover it, but yeah, it's just there's other stuff going on. I don't have time for TNA. Collision, at least there's going to be announcements for Dynamite, so I have to watch it. But yeah, I have to go with the show that I have to watch.
Yeah. For myself personally, this year, this has been like the least amount of wrestling that I've watched over a WrestleMania weekend. Going back, I think like 2019, 2020. Obviously, those years were a bit odd, the pandemic years. But certainly over the last couple of years, I did try to make a concerted effort to watch just about everything that was possible. Um, but this year, I I watched the Ring of Honor show, I watched a little bit of NXT, and I watched the WrestleMania shows. And I just, for a couple of reasons. One, just my personal life, my work life at the moment is kind of
Yeah.
non-stop. So the idea of taking like a week out of my schedule to go and watch a bunch of wrestling, I can't afford to do that. But also just a lot of the kind of North American independent wrestling scene, and certainly like some of these cards, I just wasn't seeing anything where I was like, you're really going to get some compelling wrestling. There are a couple of like bits and pieces here and there, and there's a couple of matches that I'll probably catch up on. But even like looking through Cage Match and looking at different kind of wrestling websites, it doesn't really seem like it was a weekend where there was like a lot of barn burners. Like you'll see I've seen before on some websites where they'll do like they'll take all of the matches of the weekend and they'll rank them, and there's like 100 odd matches or so. But I haven't seen any of those yet, but I'm pretty sure that like if I was to see one, I don't think that even like a top 10 would be, you'd be getting to maybe like the top 6 or 7, and then you'd have some decent matches. It's just, it felt like a really kind of lackluster weekend in terms of like really special matches. Like, because you'd always hope that at least even like the Mark Hitchcock special would have like 1 or 2 absolute bangers. And it just hasn't really felt like that this week. Oh, I'm sure people in there
Yeah,
had a great time. I'm sure there's
yeah.
a lot of stuff going on, but yeah, it didn't
There
really feel
was,
like a proper week of like wrestling celebration.
yeah. There just it just didn't feel like there was anything like really I needed to go out of my way to see. Like there's always a great Sweetball Mike Bailey match. I think he wrestled Dolph Ziggler sometime during the weekend. Um, it just didn't feel as hot because what feels hot right now is WWE and their matches, and that's pretty much it. There isn't anything like really marquee because all of the great talent from last year either went to WWE or is with AEW or are injured. Like last year, I was really excited to go see Hijo del Vikingo,
Yeah.
and he's out for a long time. I think he had knee surgery or something, so he's out for a while. Um, but there just wasn't anything like super compelling where I'm like, oh, I need to go see this.
Yeah.
There's
I,
nothing there on any of these big WrestleMania weekend shows.
I think as well, and this has kind of been the case now for I feel a few years at least anyway, but there's a real like the bubble has burst in terms of how
Yeah,
many wrestling shows exist during one of these weekends. And I mean, I kind of get it when you're in like the Northeast, and in around areas like Philly, and so anywhere kind of around that region, you're probably going to get quite a few local promotions come in, or even like promotions that come up from like further northeast, like Limitless or Prestige, or there's a couple of others I can't remember. But I remember when I went to WrestleManias back in 2011 and 2013, and there was the Ring of Honor show, there was a Dragon Gate USA show, and there was WrestleMania, and even like 2016. I think there are a few more shows at least, but like for WrestleMania 2016, there was the NXT Takeover, there was the WrestleMania. I remember went to the Ring of Honor show, and there was like a WrestleCon Super Show as well. There may have been a couple of others, but there was still like that. The amount of crowd there wasn't stretched that thin across like where you've got wrestlers wrestling 9 times over the weekend. And some of that does fall on GCW and the amount of shows that they run. And while I do get the aspect of, hey, here's a wrestling show that's like just for black people, minority people. Here's a show that is for LGBTQ plus people. Here's like a blood sports show that's this kind of like worked shoot fight style. Like they do have these shows that have different gimmicks to them, and that's really cool. But at the same time, that's 4 or 5 shows there already, where when I went, 10, 12 years ago, there was just like 3 shows across the weekend across all the companies, including WrestleMania.
it
And so
feels like
there's a
content overload
it really is.
sometimes.
It's content overload, and there isn't the talent there
Yeah.
to facilitate all of these shows. Maybe you could have done that back in 2013 or whatnot, but it just isn't the case because as you mentioned, like WWE and AEW have so much of the talent already. What's left is just kind of spread so thin, and it's hard to even do like a kind of indie super show because so many of those people you'd have had like 5 or 6 years ago are now appearing
uh,
on
Not
Dynamite,
indie.
or it's
The
just yeah,
thing is, 10 years ago in 2013, 2014, you have to remember that WWE had a very different idea when it came to hiring talent. I mean, if you remember that era, and before that era, a lot of the guys that they were trying to bring in were like 6 foot 3, 4, um,
oh
you
yeah,
know,
I remember
with
Mason Ryan.
incredible bodies. Mason Ryan, like the Mason Ryan types. That's the ones
Yeah,
that they wanted. They didn't even want athletes. They wanted people who looked like Randy Orton or Mason Ryan or Batista or those kind of guys. And the women, I mean, they were literally hiring them from like bikini photo shoots or whatever.
Yeah.
It was a very different mentality. And then it shifted, and they suddenly wanted indie guys, they wanted women, they wanted, people who had any kind of buzz. And over the last 10 years, we've seen that them pretty much hire most of the people from the indie scene and anyone who had a name. And AEW came along and they took everybody else. So now here we are in 2024, and it's like anyone who has buzz or, who's a really great wrestler, they are not here at, and I'm not trying to like bury them because I think they're all interesting shows, but it's like the GCW shows that they don't have like the talent level that WWE and AEW has now. So now they're trying to compensate with other people, and it works. Those people go to those shows and love them, but these aren't the loaded independent shows that we saw 5-6 years ago because everyone has moved on, and now we're trying to like find, well, who else can we try to get over, and who else can
Yeah.
we promote as a big star,
And like, you had the novelty of Joey Janela's Spring Break, and
yeah,
certainly when that started, that was like,
it was a novel idea.
it was a novel idea, but you also got like freak show matches like a PCO versus a Volta at the time,
Yeah,
and they're still trying to do elements of that, but there's kind of a magic and a spark that it's very hard to reproduce, certainly when you're like 8 editions in of it. And it's just, you can get away with doing it every year, but you got to have a couple of matches that really like hit home, and it just hasn't been the case this year. So yeah, I'm kind of worried for like future WrestleManias, how much further that whole week, because it really is a week now. It's not WrestleMania
yeah.
weekend. Like, you've got
Like
matches from like
we
fucking
were
Tuesday and
we were
Wednesday.
talking about, we were watching shows by like Thursday, I think, maybe Wednesday.
I
It's
think
it's
Wednesday.
very
I'm
much,
pretty sure Wednesday is when it
yeah.
starts now.
It's very much an all week event now.
Yeah. But anyway, we are not going to be talking about that much in terms of like shows because we just haven't had time.
No.
I will quickly say I did watch Ring of Honor Supercard of Honor. Um, Probably the weakest show that they've done in this Tony Khan era, and kind of Ring of Honor as a whole. It's very hard to try and justify its existence considering that
All the
the
champions are on AEW shows and they're never on Ring of Honor TV.
yeah, and like this, the whole like Eddie Kingston and Mark Briscoe had a very good match, but the storytelling or in terms the build up of that match was incredibly illogical in terms of like Mark Briscoe really should have been facing not Adam Cole, but like an Adam Cole adjacent type person who can really like you know works effectively as a heel to really kind of push on this idea of like Mark Briscoe, you're not a singles wrestler, you're not a main event wrestler, you'll never reach this kind of like level. Because Eddie Kingston just isn't the person for that. And while it was a nice moment, there was this should have been an incredible. It should have been one of like the moments of the weekend, the emotional moments of the weekend, and it was very well done. It was enjoyable. It was a very good match, but it just didn't quite feel at the level that it should have been for what that moment was. So that was a little bit disappointing. But it was a solid show. It was an easy watch. There are a couple of matches that I would definitely say you can skip. But like the Ring of Honor pay-per-views, by and large, will always give you at least a kind of decent amount for your money's worth. But compared to Supercard of Honor shows previously, this was quite low. If you were to rank them, so yeah, and that's just kind of like another kind of issue that Tony Khan has to deal with, on top of many that we're not going to get into on this particular episode. But that's it. That's it in terms of everything that isn't WWE related. So, do we jump into NXT Stand and Deliver first? Because
I do have
I've
one question. How bad was the John Morrison and Dalton Castle match, because I heard that match went on forever.
It's pretty
And
bad.
I've seen the build to that match, and if you guys have seen the build to that match, it comes off like two guys who know that nobody watches this show. But it very much felt like NXT, not NXT like now, but like NXT the reality
Yeah,
show,
NXT. What the
where
fuck was the Redemption? That was it.
Redemption, yes, where you knew nobody was watching this, you know nobody in charge cared, so you just made your own storylines and you just invented your own ideas and you just put them on TV, and the commentators would just rip all over it because nobody was watching and nobody cared. That's what it felt like watching those segments. And I did not see the match, but I heard the match was not good and it took forever to get through and wasn't great.
Yeah, it wasn't a very good match. It wasn't the worst match that I saw this weekend, so take that for what it's worth. But yeah,
Uh,
definitely two people who knew that
oh yeah.
um what they were doing it was just a blip on the radar in the grand scheme of things. But no, it was pretty bad. So
Yeah.
yeah, NXT Stand and Deliver. I think they announced about like 15,000 people in the Wells Fargo Center, which is
Something like that.
completely fucking insane for
Yeah.
an NXT
NXT.
show.
Yeah.
Like
Especially
I've
NXT
been
2.0. Well, it's not 2.0 anymore, but like this isn't the NXT of old.
no, and I went to NXT in Dallas, which had the FTR American Alpha, had the
Oh.
Nakamura Zayn match, had
The one
Finn.
Nakamura match people probably like in
Yeah,
WWE.
and I think that had a couple of thousand people that venue was set up for,
Yeah.
and just to see like 15,000 people watching Roxanne Perez and Lyra Valkyria is I don't know, my head can't kind of wrap this around, but this is WWE at the moment. They can really
I,
do no wrong.
yeah.
It's crazy.
It's yeah, I mean WWE business has always been good, but now we're at a level where it's like everything's firing off and they are hitting some of their biggest gates of all time, and this was kind of the example, even in NXT, where it's like if I put up an NXT clip, nobody watches that. Like nobody cares too much about NXT, but the ratings are very solid and up from last year, and the their premium live events do well, and this one did really well. So there's definitely something here.
Yeah. I guess it'll be interesting to see like for the next couple of special events because I'm pretty sure their special events in general do uh, a few thousand. So this is obviously an anomaly because it was WrestleMania weekend, but WWE was smart to capitalize on it, and hey, they managed to fill out like the Wells Fargo Center, which is, where they would do fucking normal pay-per-views from. So it's crazy that they're able to fill out an NXT show. Um, that was well, not headlined, but had a title match between Ilya Dragunov and Tony D'Angelo. Just complete fucking madness. What did you think of the show in general?
I thought it was good. I didn't think it was like great or anything, but everything was really good. I not really good, but good to fine. I think the triple threat match was pretty good. The North American title match between Obafemi, um, Dijak, and Josh Briggs. I thought that was a very good like big guy match. I thought that was good. The main event with Carmelo Hayes and Trick Williams, it was good, but for a match that has been built for months and months and months and has gotten so it's got both over. Like Trick Williams is very over at this point in his career right now. He's really firing off on all cylinders. For a match that's been built for so long, it was just kind of like there. It was just nothing wrong with it, but it didn't feel like well, this is the culmination of a months-long feud. It felt like, well, when are they going to wrestle again? Even though Trick won clean, for if I remember correctly, he won clean. So yeah, I mean, all the matches on these shows were all good. I don't think there was anything like really bad or anything, but um, it was a good to fine show.
So I
Fine
got a
to
couple
good,
of
I think. Fine to good, I think, is the better uh, saying there.
I got a couple of things to follow up from some of the things you said there.
Yeah.
So the triple threat for the North American title. What I found interesting about this match, going by like the reception that I saw online and also like the reception on Cage Match, and in fairness, Cage Match has this real problem now where it's having to deal with bots and whatnot else, and like the admins and the mods of that site. I feel
I
for
don't
them.
even pay attention to cage match, so
It's
bother
it's a,
me.
it's kind of a disaster at the moment over there, but you were seeing a lot of people praise this match as like, oh, this is one of the best triple threats ever. This is one of the best
No,
NXT matches ever. Yada yada yada.
it was good, but not like awesome.
And here's the thing: I thought, you know what, like three big men getting in there and just like going hell for leather with a guy who's had what, like Obafemi has had less than 20 matches and already has a fair amount of like poise and coordination to him. So to be put in this kind of spot, I think he did really well. And yes, with a triple threat, you're able to hide some of your limitations, and you've got someone like a Dijak in there who's a bit of a ring veteran. And overall, it worked out really well. But these people that are watching this match and they're losing their minds are the same people that will on a week to week basis bang on about how storytelling, WWE does like the best storytelling, and AEW doesn't know storytelling. And I was watching this match. I was like, this is a fucking PWG match from 2017. It literally could be because Dijak is in it. And I was like, I'm watching a man do a choke slam reversal into a Canadian destroyer. This is not storytelling. This is three men doing a bunch of spots, and it's great, and I'm having a blast of
I
it.
like it.
But if this match had appeared on a Dynamite or a Collision or a Dynasty or a Double or Nothing or whatever, these exact same people would be slagging this match till Kingdom Come, and it does speak to a just a level of hypocrisy and tribalism, and none of this is exactly like new information. But this for me, this match here was a real spotlight on that you've got these three guys here just doing a bunch of spots, very well executed, very entertaining match. I've got no issue with this match, but just the kind of wider scope of things about what this match represents and how these same people that bang on about storytelling on any given day um, are praising this as like one of the best matches that they've seen in NXT, and it's like, well, these two things don't really kind of like stand up against each other, but I digress. And then with the Trick Williams and Carmelo Hayes match, the way that they built it, an agreement where they really tried to build this as like the one of the bigger matches that you've ever seen in NXT, and you've got like these two former tag team partners or stablemates, best friends, and they've had this split. And the immediate comparison you would make to NXT is like, Gargano and Ciampa when they split and they did their blood feud basically. And you think about like you think about what those matches looked like between Gargano and Ciampa, and they were violent and they were spectacles and they were brawling and there were weapons and there was like, you know, an attempt to show like genuine hatred between these two people. And so, and now in fairness, like some of those matches did get a bit self-indulgent and whatnot, but look, they were still incredible. Like they were effective in terms of the storytelling that you were trying to do for
Yeah.
what was to build up to those matches. And for here, you're thinking, okay, well, this should be a blood feud. This should be no disqualification match or whatever gimmick you want to
Oh
put
yeah, I
onto it.
forgot all about that. No, Ava told the referee to be lenient because there has to be a winner. It can't just be a no DQ match. It can't be like a no count out match or a false count anywhere match. No, it's lenient rules.
Yeah.
So,
Just absolute fucking
yeah,
nonsense. And she just watching this match was like, all right. I mean, yeah, it's a serviceable match. Like a gentleman's three if you're being
yeah,
nice, but not even not the best match on this card, and certainly not the kind
no.
of like blood feud intensity that you was expecting from these two. So um
Maybe they'll save it for the cage match next week.
I guess, I mean, you're hoping that they're able to pick up for that, but I don't know. If I was one of those 15,000 people in attendance, I imagine a bunch of those were like invested in this story and invested in this match. I don't think that they got their money's worth.
No, it wasn't a main event where you felt like, well, this I just saw this big conclusion to this feud, and I can't wait to see where they go from here. I watched it. I feel like, well, they're going to do more. So like, okay, like I don't know why this headlined. I don't know why ever going. I don't know why it headlined if we're going to do this match.
Well, look, I think you're. It's easy to justify that you would have this headline over Tony
Yeah,
D'Angelo as
it's
your
true.
title contender.
That the build up to
So
that feud sucked.
exactly. So you would definitely do Trick and Carmelo as the main event. That's not an issue. But just the payoff, the execution was just a fucking disaster. Not a
Yeah,
disaster, but just
not a
just
disaster,
bland.
but
Just
like
bland.
just bland.
Yeah.
Just there.
And I mean that's kind of it in terms of like my NXT takes. I didn't think much of Perez and Lyra. Like Roxanne Perez as a heel, kind
Okay, to me, I think she does a good job.
of standout, breakout performer. And I think that a lot of that was based on the idea that she was incredibly young, but already was like
Yeah.
quite proficient in the ring, and that's all completely valid. Like you can go and watch some of her Ring of Honor work and see like someone who was very like new to the industry already had like 2 feet working pretty
Yeah.
well.
She
But
was good before being signed.
like this NXT run has just really exposed the fact that as a as a performer, not in the in ring, not that I think that she's like gotten anywhere kind of exponentially better, but just as a performer, as a character, as someone who has to act, man alive, is she? It's not her strong suit, and I
Mhm.
worry about what
I've seen
that.
there's worse in NXT, much
There
worse
are,
than that.
I mean, there are worse in NXT, but also there aren't many characters pushed and have as like as much screen time and presence as she does, and she's probably going to come up to the main
No.
roster sooner rather than later,
I
and
think she's gonna be called up in the
kind of
draft.
yeah, and I'm kind of worried about like what
I
that looks
think
like on the main roster.
I think she'll be fine. I just think she's more better off as a babyface than a heel because she does have that connection with people as a babyface, and I think she's naturally very good at that role. As a heel, I think she's good at it. I don't think she's great at it. I don't really buy her as being like this big time heel. She's someone who I think can definitely grow more in terms of character development and talking and speaking and having that. She can definitely improve in that area. I don't think she's terrible at it. I don't think she's not ready for it for doing all that on the main roster. I think she is ready for that, but I think she's going to be like miscast as a heel for a while because I think they
Yeah,
want her to do the heel turn because I think for people that they really have investment in, they want to have them be both a babyface and a heel. I had both of those runs. Kind of like with Braun Breaker. Like Breaker was ready last year to be called up, but they wanted him to do the heel run. So he did the heel run, and it's worked for him. And he's now probably, I don't know, he is called up. He's on SmackDown. So So I think the match on Tuesday was his last match there. So
I believe so.
yeah. We'll see what happens with him. But yeah, with Roxanne, she's very talented, very good. I think she'll go far more than others on the main roster, but she does have work that she could work on. Yeah, definitely.
And that's it. That's kind of my takes on Stand and Deliver. I don't know if you had anything else. As usual, the overall presentation, the commentary is all just horrific. And
Booker T, there's a lot more people now who are liking Booker T, and I'm like, I don't get it. Like, if you want to laugh, if you want to like just point out all the crazy wacky things he says, then I if that's what you want in your commentary, then yeah, sure. Do I think he's good? Do I think he adds anything to the match? No, I think he's just yelling a lot of the time, and I still don't buy that he knows most of the people on the roster or any of the storylines going on. He's not good. No, don't like it.
Yep, that's pretty much it. All right, WrestleMania. WrestleMania 40 from what the hell's the name of the stadium? It's the Lincoln Financial Field.
Lincoln Financial Field, yes.
I don't know a thing about American football, but this is where the Eagles play, I'm aware. All of anything that I know about the Eagles is from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. So that's as much as my knowledge is based on. Was it 72,000 people they announced for the first night?
Something like that. I kind of just don't listen to the numbers because they're not real. Like, I'll find out the real numbers eventually, but those are the numbers for what did they say, the entertainment portion of the show?
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that. Yeah, it was somewhere in the 70,000s both nights.
And as we'd find out throughout the night, the weather was a cool, like 45 degrees Celsius,
like first night
Fahrenheit,
was
which
very
is
windy.
Which is about 7 degrees Celsius for us Euros who use that. And yeah, that's pretty nippy. I remember when I went to WrestleMania in New York in 2013. And like it's always the thing with like the Northeast shows that you do in March or April when you're doing an open air stadium. You do run this risk. And I remember we had about a 10-minute window where we thought that it was going to rain quite badly, and it was quite nippy as well. And there's a reason that they've done quite a few shows in California and Florida.
A lot better weather.
Yeah, a lot better weather. So like it was a risk. It was a risk, but for the most part, it paid off. It was a bit nippy the first night, but the weather seemed okay the second night.
I've been to 2 WrestleManias. I went to WrestleMania 35, where after Ronda Rousey lost, I think, Becky Lynch won both titles. After that, it started. There was a torrential downpour for the next 2 hours, and so I was standing there trying to get an Uber out of MetLife Stadium and just being so miserable. That's an experience I don't like. I still remember I do not like. The WrestleMania last year was 10 times better because the first night I managed to get an Uber. I still waited a long time, but I did manage to get an Uber out the first night. And then the second night I took like a bus that took people over to MetLife, and I managed to walk like 1 block to the bus on the way back, and we got home just fine. So a lot better experience, and it did not rain. It was a nice night in LA both nights.
The setup, like the entrance for this year, was shockingly simple. For a company that have made all the fucking money over the last couple of years.
I think they're emphasizing getting people in the building as opposed to having like these big elaborate setups we've seen over the last few years.
Yeah, and I guess it's interesting because of like Raw the next night as well used a much stripped
also
down
very simple
staging. And I don't have an issue with that. Certainly for like Raw, I don't have an issue doing that because it does like mix up the entrances and whatnot, and I'm always for that. But I did think that I don't know, yeah, it just felt I was expecting to see like a massive fucking Liberty Bell So I remember again, like the 2013 Mania that I was at, like they had the fucking Brooklyn Bridge, and they had
Oh yeah, I remember
like
that.
an insane setup, or like
Was this
Mania.
one of the Rock Cena matches?
Yeah, it was the second one. Or remember like WrestleMania in Orlando from 2008, where they just had like the biggest fucking hotel building or whatever you've
Oh
ever
yeah.
seen in your life. And this just, yeah, I mean, I think part of it is because there's so much more of an emphasis on
Last
like
year's was really elaborate.
last year's, yeah, no, last year's I guess actually
The
was quite
posters
elaborate
and
as well.
everything.
But there's such a like an emphasis on like the augmented reality,
Yeah.
visual effects, and like the LED boards doing a lot of the heavy lifting. That I
Yeah.
think that they realized that look, we don't need to spend $1 million on creating a big fuck off cracked Liberty Bell that's going to be used never seen again. And
Yeah,
from
put
that,
put in the storage room or the storage.
and from that aspect, like yeah, from that aspect, I guess I can get that. But I don't know, a big X and a big L did seem a little bit lackluster.
A little bit.
Yeah. Anyway, let's jump into some wrestling. So our opening match, Rhea Ripley defeated Becky Lynch and her big virtual book that was throwing quotes
Yeah.
out from it. Um, I think we've spoken about this before, and I do need to make a mention of it again. Why is the makeup and the eye, specifically the eye makeup, on all women's wrestlers for these major shows are just atrocious?
They're they're very noticeable and they're very like loud. Like I've seen that in recent years where it feels like they all want to just put on as much makeup as possible, and it's like, okay, that's if that's what you want to do, go for it. But it seems like everyone does it. I'm not sure why.
Like, there's no nice way to put this, but Rhea Ripley in particular looked like she had like massive bruising on her face. And like Becky Lynch looks like fucking Ziggy Stardust era David Bowie. Just oh, what like the purpose is that they're trying to do with the women's wrestlers on these shows with the makeup, but it's always so detracting, and I just don't like it. Of many things that I don't like about WWE's production, um, of things that seem to have kind of carried over from like the previous regime to this one. This is one that they still seem to stick with. So I don't know if it's like the makeup team that specifically that are still here that are making these decisions. Um, and to be quite honest, what I've just said there was kind of a bit more interesting than this match, which was
Yeah.
a perfectly fine
I
match,
thought it was like
but
a good
yeah.
WWE main event style match where they hit all their big moves and everybody kicked out, but it wasn't anything like beyond that.
No.
Like I've seen better from both.
Yeah, but here's the thing as well, and I've mentioned this as well on the podcast before. Like Rhea Ripley's run over this last, and it has been a year now,
Yeah.
as the women's world heavyweight champion or whatever it's called.
Like
I
her
found it to be
presence,
underwhelming.
it is weird that she definitely has a main event level presence, and she definitely should be the champion because she has this aura that nobody else on the main roster has. But in terms of having matches in the last year, it's been very hit or miss. Either she just stuff doesn't work, or it's too short, or it's just not there. I don't know what it is, but it's like she beat Charlotte for the title, and that was an excellent match, one of the better matches of that WrestleMania. But now here we are a year later, and yeah, she still has that aura. She's still like this main event level figure, but in terms of like great matches, I mean, she doesn't have like the resume that other people have. So it's kind of weird.
Yeah, and like I don't know, I think most people were hoping that when she got this particular title run, that this would be the one where she really elevated herself as like one of the better female wrestlers in the world, to be quite honest. And while,
Yeah,
as you kind of mentioned, in terms of like the aura and the presence, that is all there, but just the matches have not been there to back it up. And I think part of the issue that they they were able to avoid with Gunther just because they had like the talent around to work with. For the most part, a lot of it's just been like there isn't really any kind of women wrestlers they can put up against Rhea where you're like, well, she, has a chance to actually win the belt from her. So I do think that one of the things they're going to have to do is like really think about this draft that's coming up and think about who they can get on the roster that like feels like a viable contender to Rhea Ripley.
I
So I
don't
could
know if
definitely
there's
see.
anyone though.
Well, I think
Like
Io Sky, just because they can
maybe.
run back like their NXT feud, that would be the most obvious one.
I do feel that they will probably split Bailey and the rest of Damage Control on this
Oh, the whole
draft.
damage control thing needs to be split up anyway. That's run its course and then some.
Oh, maybe. I think with Julia coming, well, she's probably going to NXT though.
Oh
So,
yeah, for sure.
yeah, maybe they'll split them all up. I don't know, but yeah, I think it's definitely the Bailey and Io thing is going to be split. Yeah.
Um, we had where are we? Yeah, a six-pack ladder match. A Town Down Under, Awesome Truth, The Judgment Day, DIY, The New Day, and New Catch Republic. In every single ladder match that you've ever seen, the only real thing of note that I want to say is that DIY coming out in a kind of like tribute to DX was one
They're
of the
DX
more
tribute act now.
embarrassing fucking things that I've ever seen from two grown men.
It's what's getting them on TV at this point. I don't
Like
know.
I know Johnny Gargano is a dork. I get that. I know he loves his Disney. I like Disney as well. I know he loves his Marvel. I like Marvel as well. Um, but like this coming up with the fucking Sean's hat on and like the two of 45 pedigrees that we saw over the weekend.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't enjoy this. And this match was like it was fine,
Remember,
but
this is Triple H's era.
yeah, yeah, you would never have guessed from being told a million fucking times during the weekend. Yeah, I mean, I don't have much to say about this ladder match.
It's just every kind of ladder match ever. Feels like WWE does way too many of them. Everyone does way too many of them. I'm kind of tired of ladder matches, honestly. And this one, it's like I think it was good. There's some cool spots. But do I remember much of it a week later? It's not. It's not even been a week. It's been a few days. Less than a week later, no, I don't. I remember they finally split the tag team titles. So
Yeah,
that's
it's that, and they also managed to put them on like the worst two teams in this
I
match.
know, right? Awesome Truth, the Raw Tag Team Champions.
Does
Okay.
anyone truly have any nostalgic feelings for the 2011 run that was the Awesome Truth?
No,
I don't think so.
I remember that led to them striking, and I remember that led to one of the worst Raws I've ever seen, where it's
Oh
just
yeah,
like,
the unsafe working environments with
yes,
R-Truth and The
the
Miz running
where
Rampage.
yes, where CM Punk has been feuding with Authority for all this time was suddenly Triple H's like best friend, and where Triple H suddenly no, where Vince McMahon said, I forgot what happened. It led to the introduction of Johnny Ace, who now is we don't talk about him, but
Excommunicado and then
yeah,
some.
he's gone.
Yeah.
Just a really, I think they fired JR for the 10 millionth time on this show too. I mean, like, it was one of the worst Raws in that I've ever seen. Like, just a complete failure to have any kind of logical booking or have anything good. It was like one of the first Raws where it's like you can tell like Vince McMahon was kind of losing it. It was like that one and the one where he got really mad at the Denver Nuggets owner, and
Oh God.
he made an entire show like mocking him. This guy nobody really would know, and he spent the entire show mocking him because of some NBA thing that I think only NBA fans would know about.
Oh, well, no, wasn't it that they were booked for an arena and then like the Denver Nuggets had
The
that?
Denver Nuggets had that booking, I think, and I think
Yeah.
they won out, and Vince got really mad, and so they had like this Raw where they had like uh, the owner come out, but it wasn't the owner; it was like a guy playing the owner. Not like anybody would know who he is, and Vince McMahon like slapped him or something. I don't. It was all
Uh,
very, it was all very self indulgent. It
and
was
then
all
Ken
very
Kennedy
much
got
to get.
fired.
Oh, Kennedy got fired because he dropped Randy Orton on his bad shoulder or something.
Yeah. Good
Yeah,
stuff.
that was also a
Good
very
stuff.
terrible Raw.
There was a lot of
Uh,
bad Raws around that time.
it was the start. It was the start of the signs where this very much is a show about pleasing Vince McMahon, and it's like we saw it a few times here, but then by like 2018 or something, someone pointed this out to me. It's like the minute Vince McMahon got headbutted by Kevin Owens, and he legit bled. It's like WWE booking just went downhill after that.
Mm.
Like really downhill where nothing made any sense and people talk like aliens and things would be started and things would drop and people would be called up and then forgotten about. Like very much I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to get here as, but yeah, Vince McMahon is a bad booker. As we saw on this show, because this show has very some of the most basic booking you'll ever do, and because it was a story that was told over 2 years, where nobody tried to mess it up and make it dumb or make it weird, it worked tremendously well, and and we all credit Triple H with that, and he achieved a very low bar by being a better booker than Vince McMahon.
Yeah. Andrade and Rey Mysterio with Carlito, Cruz del Toro, Joaquin White, and Zelina Vega defeated the team of Dominic Mysterio and Santos Escobar with Angel, Berto, and Elektra Lopez. And my first thought as I was watching everyone come out to the ring, I was like, if you've got all these guys on the outside in their trunks and tights, why not just make this an 8-man tag and get like
I know.
more people
I
on the
thought we
show?
were getting an 8-man tag.
Yeah.
Instead, we got a tag team match.
Like, because that would have helped in terms of you didn't have to have Ray in the ring as much because, like, the man can still go, but he is also 50. So, help him out where you can. And it'd be nice just to get the other guys on there and you could just have turned this into a real, like, flippy stunt show style match.
Yeah.
And instead, this was a perfectly, like, fine tag match that you would get on SmackDown.
I don't remember any of it. I remember the finish where the football
Yeah.
guys came in.
Yeah, two
Uh,
very large men came in who took off their masks, and I had as much clue who they were before they took off the masks as I did after they
One
took off
of
the
them
masks.
is the brother of the guy that is dating Taylor Swift. That's all
Well,
I
good for
know.
him.
Yeah,
Good
good
for
for him.
him. Yeah. That's it. That's all I've got on this.
He's another, both football guys.
Jey Uso versus Jimmy Uso is one of the worst WrestleMania matches I have seen, probably
I
since the
could
last
not
time two
believe
brothers faced
this.
each other at Mania.
I could not believe the extreme lack of heat this had. I could not believe the build they had towards this match, where it just felt like nothing. And then they go out there and wrestle, and it's just like that. On a technical level, there doesn't seem to be anything wrong with it, but like it's not there. The work isn't there. The crowd wasn't there. They just had like a super flat match that just was so weird because Jey Uso is usually very good and is usually just so charismatic, and I mean it's clear who's the more charismatic one here. But I don't know. Nobody got into it. No, and this is a story that they've been building for months and months and months, and I don't know. They got to the end and just everything just fell super flat. It's very weird.
Similar to what we were talking about with Trick and Carmelo Hayes, all of that basically can apply here, and then even more
But
so
but the
because you
build,
talk.
but the build to this was nothing.
Well,
I
I
think
think the build at least had the elements of like, hey, Jay was screwed out of two championship matches by
yeah.
his brother. while I can't say I particularly cared for the yeet no yeet aspect of this match, at least there was, the brother versus brother feud. I think the dynamic was there going into this. The biggest issue is that they just made this a singles match, and if any match over the course of this weekend needed a violent stipulation to it, it was this one.
Yeah.
Because that may have helped fucking Jimmy from not needing to just do 300 super kicks in the course of about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And like, I'm watching this and I'm thinking, all right, you two have been wrestling on the main roster since I believe 2010 ish,
It's been a while.
thereabouts. So we're talking 14 years.
Yeah.
And have been two of the more like predominant acts. I mean, they main evented WrestleMania of night one
Last year.
last year.
Yeah.
And I've seen them have some exceptional matches over the
Yeah.
years.
It's a great tag team.
And I'm just watching this, and it's just like, it feels like I'm watching two people that have only just started wrestling in the last year and like have maybe two or three spots lined up, but then found out that they have to go for another 10 minutes and just had no idea what to do.
And the weird thing is that Jay, as a singles, has had good matches too.
He's been
Jimmy,
okay. I
Jimmy
will say
is
this. I
whatever.
definitely feel like Jimmy as a singles wrestler has no idea what he's doing. Like he really has an
He's
issue.
I mean I knew going into the split that Jay was going to be the better one because he's more charismatic and is a way better promo.
Yeah.
In terms of work, I mean, like Jimmy is a guy that exists. He's like the lackey.
Yeah.
It's
And
lackey charisma.
look, you need people like that, and he was a perfect
Sure.
for that level. And in terms of the booking, yeah, you have Jay win, that makes sense, great. But this did as much to damage Jay, even though he won the match, And I know he won the number one contendership the next match, and I haven't seen like enough of Raw to kind of gauge where the crowd is with him. They very much like to
You're
do
with
the
him.
Yeet thing, so I'm sure that'll like do much
Yeah.
of the heavy lifting for him. But this was like, I remember that Matt and Jeff match, and I remember everyone being incredibly disappointed by it.
Yeah. That was
Um,
probably better than this match.
that match was, I mean, that at least had the twist of fate through the steel chair
Yeah.
gimmick to the end.
There's weapons in
This
that match.
this was just,
There's
oh,
nothing going on.
yeah,
Very
this was
weird.
this is
They have
diabolical.
very weird chemistry with one another where like they don't want to do anything with one another. So it's
Ooh.
just very weird. That's
Me
all I can
yawning,
keep
me
saying.
yawning. That's my
Yeah.
thoughts on that match.
Yeah. Very boring.
Bianca Belair, Jade Cargill, and Naomi defeated Asuka, Dakota Kai, and Kairi Sane in kind of a nothing match, kind of just a bit of a
Yeah.
showcase for Jade
It
Cargill.
was fine, but the only goal was to get Jade Cargill over, and I think I accomplished it. She definitely has an aura.
She does. She does. She doesn't really seem to look like she's improved anything since she came to WWE. When did they sign her? Was it like the summer of last year?
I think it was a little later than that. They've definitely been keeping her um, under wraps. I
Yeah.
guess she should train at the performance center or whatever.
Yeah, it
But
doesn't
looking at
really.
her, it's like there's nothing like she hasn't improved tremendously.
No.
No.
No. So, yeah, I mean, look, in a six man or a six person is a great spot to hide her limitations. But it's interesting because, her last match that she had in AEW against Chris Statlander, which was probably the best match of her career. Like she was pretty serviceable in that. So while to some degree I can understand that if you're a bit trepidatious, you want to hide someone's limitations, but also like you've got to get these fucking people in the ring and just get them doing reps. That's how they learn. That's how they get better.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, hang on. I just want to see. Has Jade
And
Kill
then
literally just had those two matches? Uh, yeah, she was in the Rumble. She had the tag match, and then she was on Raw, and she beat
and
Chelsea
she
Green in
had like
30
the match
seconds.
you'd see on Rampage or Dynamite.
So she,
So funny.
yeah, so it was the 13th of September was her match against Chris Statlander. basically between fucking like October or when they signed her and WrestleMania, she should have been doing every house show match under the sun against
She should be working house shows.
like your Natalias and whoever else, and get the reps in. Like that was the thing that people were saying that was the issue with her.
Book.
Um, no, no, but that's what like people saying with the issue with her in AEW is that
Oh,
because they
yeah.
don't do house shows, she didn't have the chance to like, or she didn't do like dark matches or anything. She just could never get better because she was only doing
Yeah. She
30
was only
second.
doing the title matches.
Exactly. So it's like, all right, well, you're in a company now that they do house shows, they do these tours, get her on them, and they've decided not to do that, and I think that's a really it's a really short-sighted approach to this because she's just not going to get better.
No, but I hope from here that she starts doing house shows because she does need to get that stuff in. She has an incredible presence, and I can, it's easy to see why they are so invested in her, but we need to see that next level because all of the top talent in WWE, male or female, you have to work. You have to be at a believable level to be able to have great matches, and if you can't even be carried, it's really tough. Um, so we'll see what happens with her. And they are definitely behind her. They definitely want to focus on her being a next level talent, but she also needs to get the in ring work in.
Yeah. We then had easily the best match on the
Yes,
card, the Intercontinental Championship
easily
match
the best match
between
on night one,
Sami
by
Zayn
far.
and Gunther. And while there was, the amateur hour dramatics and the melodrama of everything
I
beforehand,
liked it. I
with someone
liked
like a
it.
Sami
Like it,
Zayn,
it
it
was a
works.
little cheesy, but like I liked it. It was fine. I kind of like that about the match. I like the presentation of that.
And I'm always happy to see any time that they'll do like a reunion with Sammy
Oh,
and
Kevin
Kevin.
Owens. Yeah.
That's always a good thing. So like the core story of this match was that Gunther just beat the shit out of Sammy for what felt like, what was it? This match was 15 minutes. Actually, it
Yeah.
seems a lot shorter than it went. But for a good like
Yeah.
12, 13 minutes, like Sammy started, he came out he came out the races on fire, was getting a bunch of chops in, but then he was just getting beat down over and over and over again. And Sammy's wife, who was in the corner, she was
It was
tremendous, like
great.
really,
Yeah.
just really strong performance from her.
Yes.
Um, and Gunther was getting super cocky, and I thought like Gunther's facials, and that real just like overly confident, cocky demeanor, I thought he played his part really well. And it led up to the moment with Sami Zayn pulling out the brain buster, which I think he's
Yeah.
only done like once
I
in WWE.
did he? I thought he hasn't used this since like Ring of Honor.
I want to say he's done it in at least one match with Kevin Owens. I might be wrong, but
Maybe
I
it was
want
like
to
a
say,
more protected version.
yeah.
This was a straight up brainbuster on the top turnbuckle.
And my one, I don't know if complaint is the right word, but my one nitpick that I have with this match is that when the um the brainbuster happened, like when he does the haluva kick, then does the brainbuster, and I understand that the brainbuster is kind of like his equivalent of Kobashi's burning hammer.
Yeah.
But at that moment in there, that kind of felt like where the match hit from like gear 3 to gear 4. Like if wrestling matches have like 4 gears, it felt like the moment where the match went from gear 3 to gear 4, and it kind of felt like we were getting into the final straight of like the next kind of 4 or 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And the match then ended about 20 seconds later, because in my mind the way I saw it is that Sammy was going to did the brainbuster, and then Gunther went to the corner, and Sammy was going to run at Gunther, and in my mind, I saw it that Gunther was either going to like hit a clothesline, or was going to do like a running drop kick, or he was going to do something that would like quickly change the favor again, and then Sammy would get like the kind of comeuppance again after that. It really felt like we had basically a couple more minutes left to go, and instead the match ended with those the brainbuster and the haluva kick. And that's not bad in theory, because you do like it, when a wrestler just wins a match. Because I will say one of the issues with WrestleMania over the weekend as a whole is so many of the matches fell into the both wrestlers have hit their finishers, and then one of the commentators said, this wrestler, he must now be thinking, like, what is it that he has left to do, because they've spanned their finishers 3 or 4 times. So I guess from that aspect, I'm okay with this match ending in the way it did, because someone did just hit like their super finisher, then their finisher, then won the match.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it did kind of feel like we were just getting ready to go to the next gear, and that there were a few more minutes in it. So it's kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. And maybe I'm being very nitpicky. But it
I
was a
didn't see
spectacular
it
match, and
that
it did
way.
end with the crowd like in a bigger option.
Once he hit the brainbuster, once he hit that other haluva kick and he covered him, I thought that should have been the finish,
Mm.
and that was the finish. So I was happy with that. But yeah, I mean, this is just a fantastic match, a great David versus Goliath type match, where Gunther just beat on him forever, and his wife was at ringside, and she did a fantastic job. Um, her performance was added to that match so much, and the finish was incredible. I gave this 5 stars, and I'm going to give the main event of the next night 5 stars too. But yeah, this was absolutely the highlight of the first night of WrestleMania, because nothing even came close. This was a very fantastic match.
I ended up going 4 stars straight. I
Okay.
think like the work there was really solid, but I also just felt that like there's a version of this match that these two can do where there's so much more to it. There's so much more drama and emotion, and this just felt like the kind of basic version of like a really great match, and it was still very, very good for sure.
Yeah.
But I think that there were so many more levels to this that they could have reached. But look, considering how we were up to this moment in time on this card, I was just appreciative to get some good fucking wrestling. So
Yeah.
thank you, Gunther and Sammy.
Yeah. Because there's nothing that came even close.
No,
So
no.
especially this next match.
Where, where, Brian Rose, do you want to start with the main event of the Bloodline, Roman Reigns and The Rock against the team of Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins? 44 minutes and 34 seconds.
That was in ring, right? That didn't count like the
That's
20 minutes
in
of
ring,
emphasis.
yes.
Okay.
I
Because they
remember.
took like
So
forever getting everyone out there.
I remember when I was looking at the playtime on the video that I had, and I saw that there was an hour left, and the entrances were just about to start. That had me concerned.
Yeah. My doorbell just rang. I am going to be right back.
No
You can
worries.
start. You can because we have a lot to talk about. So you can
All
talk
right.
about how
All right.
excruciatingly long and plotting this match was.
Okay. So this match is 45 minutes. Um, most Wrestle Kingdom main events don't go 45 minutes, and the ones that do usually have Kazuchika Okada, and that's kind of justified. There were like early moments in the early goings where, all right, yeah, you're kind of like getting the feel of the crowd, and the wrestlers are getting a feel of like the vibe. And The Rock obviously hasn't had a proper match since 2013, and so he needs to kind of get himself up to speed. That's all fine. Yeah, that's fine. You can take like the first 4 or 5 minutes of a match, and take it easy, kind of bring the crowd back down. Certainly after like the kind of euphoria of the Sammy Gunther match and the entrances, which were spectacular for this main event. But like there is 20, 25 minutes of this match where not a lot happens. There's a portion of those 25 minutes where they go out into the crowd, but even then, like the stuff in the crowd and the brawling, nothing's really happening. You've got like Seth and The Rock or in one part of the crowd, and they're just kind of like throwing bombs at each other, but not in any kind of engaging way. And then you got Roman and Cody on the entrance ramp, and there's a suplex there. But like in the grand pantheon of like crowd brawls that we've seen, and Lord knows AEW have kind of had the market down on that over the last couple of years. This just felt like the tamest fucking version of a crowd brawl that I've ever seen. And this was some like 20, 25 minutes into the match, and we're like, what the fuck are we doing here? Um, and yeah, basically, there's like if there had been like the first 5 minutes of the match where they're kind of getting a feel for things, and it's the main event of WrestleMania, you're allowed those 5 minutes to really kind of soak in, have the drama, have the spectacle. That's fine. Um, you needed to have like a flurry for a few minutes there. Then you can bring it down for a couple of minutes, maybe get the crowd brawl in there, and then you kind of go into like the shenanigans. Because towards the end of this match, the match did pick up, and I
A little
think it
bit,
ended.
yeah.
And the thing more than anything else is the fact that we were 45 minutes into this match, and
Yeah.
The Rock hadn't teared a single muscle, and B, The Rock could still breathe. Because man, for like
Yeah.
being 53 and looking like that, the amount of
He
oxygen you
was
need in that
jacked.
body,
He
like
looked great.
it's fucking insane the way Dwayne Johnson looks at 53. Just absolute madness. Um,
Yeah.
but there is like there's a 25-minute version of this match that
Oh yeah.
accomplishes everything that you need to do.
I said if this match was like 20 minutes, or if they shaved 20 minutes off of this match, you would have had like a match that was just perfectly acceptable. Would have been
A
fine.
real like pomp and circumstance style main event for WrestleMania,
Yeah.
and that's fine. Like, look, The Rock, Hulk Hogan is not a like a great match per se, but it is a great match because
Yeah.
it there are
People were into it,
there are several
and it
types of
was
wrestling.
very short,
There are several types
way
of
shorter than
wrestling.
this.
Yeah, yeah, I know, Jesus. There are several types of wrestling matches you can do, and one of them is like the sports entertainment spectacle, which
Yeah.
this and Night Two kind of are like
That
two
too
sides of that same
was pretty
coin.
much a sports entertainment spectacle.
Yeah, but oh god, this thing just went too long.
There is a Triple H thing where he feels like every main event needs to be very, 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 very long. Even though most of the time, if you cut 10 to 20 minutes off these main events, they would be even better. Triple H, I don't know what it is. I saw this all the time in NXT when he was in charge of that too, but like he just needs to have every one of his main events be very long, and he needs and we talked about it, kind of mentioned it earlier, this era with Adam Cole, Johnny Gargano, and Ciampa, where it's like they were bordering on being very overindulgent in what they were doing because it just went way, 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 way too long. Like 45 minutes for some of those matches that were a lot better than this match, but still just it's to the level of being overindulgent. And this match is just like people wanted to see The Rock, and they got to see The Rock all right because he was there for 45 minutes. And to his credit, he looked great and he didn't get cast. But like, man, I'm just sitting here watching these guys do stuff for forever, and it's just so plodding. And I'm hearing Roman Reigns' verbal speeches that he loves to do now as a heel, and I'm just like, I am over this. Can we get to the point, please?
Yeah.
And finally, eventually, they finally do it with Brock pinning Cody, and which is very much tells me that they're going to do a match in the future. I don't know when, but that maybe that's next year's WrestleMania main event. I don't know, but yeah, just way, 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 way too long. And I kind of get why, because obviously, if you go to the show, you want to see The Rock, and you got to see plenty of The Rock. But like, if they cut 20 minutes out of this, it would have been such a much better match. But because they didn't, it just went on and on and on, and it was not. It got better at the end, but in terms of overall feeling on the main event, I didn't think it was that good.
Yeah, I mean, look, that the last like 10 minutes of this match could have been a Okada Naito classic, and it still wouldn't have made up for like 30 minutes of what this fucking thing
Yeah.
ended up being. And I, and I guess we can kind of tie this into the weekend as a whole, but have you ever seen like a wrestler come out of a weekend worse than Seth Rollins did? Like, I don't know what the deal with him is in terms of his contract and what his situation is, but for a start, like there was not really any reason he needed to be in this match. In my mind, the way that you could have done this match is you could have tied in Jay and Jimmy into this, and you could have done like a handicap match with Jay and Cody against the Bloodline. Um, because that way at least we wouldn't have had to have dealt with the singles match that was Jay and Jimmy. But like Seth just I guess he probably was like he wanted to be involved because he's never actually had a WrestleMania main event, which is quite interesting. And this might be the closest he gets to having one. And to be in there with The Rock, if that opportunity comes along, I guess you do it. And he didn't look out of place, but he still just like the whole weekend did him a disservice for what he's had to be for the last year for that company. And like the finish, the only problem with the Rock pinning Cody is it telegraphed the main event of the next night to a degree that was just kind of laughable. Because like if we'd have gone into WrestleMania this year and we just had the one night and we just had Cody and Roman, you would have probably been a good like 90% confident that Cody was going to win, but you still would have had that guarantee. You would have still would have been like, "Oh, maybe they'll just have fucking Roman hold it and go past Hogan's record for however much longer
Yeah.
that would have taken."
Well, once the main event finish happened, I was pretty sure that Cody was going to win the next night.
There was
Or
no
else,
fucking way they were doing anything other than Cody winning.
maybe in Vince McMahon's role, he would have booked not him for Roman to win again. But like any other bookers, like yeah, Cody's going to win. The odds are being stacked against him.
Yeah,
What does a good babyface do? He beats the odds.
and honestly, like it would have been more. There would have been more uncertainty about the night of night two if Cody had actually pinned The Rock.
Yeah.
Like I guarantee you, that would have had more people like, well, there would at least just been a little bit more uncertainty. But like The Rock pinning Cody, it was yeah. And here's the thing: you might then be like, well, you can't have like The Rock face Cody. It's the fucking Rock. You can do whatever you want. If you want The Rock to come back and like challenge for him in 6 months' time, even if Cody pinned him, you can do that, and no one's going to give a shit. But yeah, I don't think I have anything else I can say about this match. It was fine. It was a sports entertainment spectacle. It's far too long, and I will never watch this match again. That's it.
No.
Yeah.
I'll watch the main event of night 2 again. Not this one.
Yeah. Let us crack on then to night 2, WrestleMania XL Sunday. And we started off with Drew McIntyre defeating Seth Rollins in 10 minutes 40 seconds for the World Heavyweight title in a match where basically both guys had 5 finisher specials on SmackDown and they spanned through them as quickly as they could. Like this was a pure like spot fest stunt show that yeah, I mean, sure, there's a little bit of storytelling, but no, this was just kind of spots. And I think it was smart to only go 10 minutes. I think that kind of really played into
What
like
happened
the match
next?
that Seth had the night before.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah, so and I think it was impactful for Drew to win. And the one thing I will say out of like everything that's happened over the last like month or two in this build up is I do think that Drew has become like the most compelling version of his character he's ever been. And that because I've always liked Drew, and I think that he had the real misfortune of winning his title when he did in the pandemic. And like if he'd ever been able to do that in front of fans, that would have helped him. Though, the problem with his character is that he's like, what is he? Well, he's Scottish and he's big. That's kind of about as broad strokes or as in depth that we ever got with him, and Lord knows Vince wasn't ever going to do anything more than like give him a sword, I guess. So I do
Yeah,
think that,
that was this idea.
yeah, so I
Give
do
him a
think that
sword.
his feud with Punk has brought out way more of a dimension to his character and made him so much more interesting. And now I'm like, yeah, I actually do want to see Drew and Punk. I want to see them work that match whenever we get to it. The only thing obviously is like Punk isn't going to be back for like another 6 months. So how
Yeah.
do they keep that engaging in between now and then? But this whole like 10 minutes, I don't have any issue with any of this.
No, it was a good sprint. McIntyre won, as I think one would expect. They finally did the cash in with the Money in the Bank, because I was thinking, writing the WrestleMania Night 1, I was writing notes for WrestleMania Night 1 for a review on Monday after watching both shows. I wrote Night 1. Well, what are they going to do with Damian Priest? I mean, when is he going to cash in this Money in the Bank contract? Because it's already almost time for this year's Money in the Bank. It's only a few months away. And they answered that the next night. So there you go. I thought it was very good. I thought it was a good cash in. I thought CM Punk costing Drew McIntyre the title. I thought that was good. The McIntyre and Punk stuff has been really good in the last few months, and both men are doing a great job of making that interesting. So yeah, it's a very I like this. I like the match, and I liked everything that happened after, because it makes things very interesting for everyone involved.
Yeah, I the whole like the cash in thing. I mean, and you know, like I'm not the only person to have this take, and it's been the case for a number of years now. The whole kind of cash in gimmick,
I am over it.
I'm so over it, and it
Yeah.
also like if you were to treat this as like a real thing, um, if you're Damian Priest, you're looking at that main event last night, and you're seeing this match that's gone 45 minutes, and you're thinking about like, okay, which of these belts has the more prestige? Which of these belts has the more cachet to
Yeah.
them? Which of these title holders, if I was to pin them, would give me way more notoriety and fame and whatever else? And obviously, you're going to look at Roman and his 4 year title reign, and you would go for that. And the simple fact that you can't do that for obvious reasons, that in itself, regardless of anything else, makes the belt that he does go for feel way less
Yeah.
valuable
Because
because it's like,
if this were real, I would think, well, Roman always has the bloodline with him. They always like to interfere in his matches. If I go and cash in, they're just going to cost me the match. I'm going to go for the easier title, the title that nobody wants, which was like third place belt, because they fused two titles to make the title Roman has. And so this is third place. And okay, let's go for that. Like, if it, like it's, I don't know.
and
It
that's it.
doesn't, when you think
Yeah,
about it like that, it doesn't make any sense.
yeah, and you know, like the belt isn't in the strongest standings anyway for the reasons that you just mentioned. And I guess maybe if they'd originally done Punk and Rollins, as I guess it was the plan, and if Punk had won the match, um, maybe no, I would definitely say that like if Priest had cashed in on Punk, I think there's at least a little bit more where you can be like, well, hey, he cashed in on CM Punk. Like that does come with like a level of notoriety to it. And maybe that'd be a bit I think that would definitely be more impactful. But it's just like, you know, this is how the cards were laid out and obviously things had to change. But I do think that you know, in a perfect world, you'd have just had like Damian Priest like maybe come out on the next night on Raw and be like, all right, Drew, um, you know, I'm going to cash in and we're going to face each other at Backlash, whatever the case may be, which obviously wasn't going to happen. And the way that they made it work at WrestleMania with like Punk being the one to cost him, theoretically, you know, like, it does all like tie in from a storyline basis, but it still is basically a belt that when they like tied those or fused those belts together in 2013. You know, you think about the last like 2 or 3 years of that belt and how much of a non-entity that thing was.
Yeah.
You know, like fucking the Del Rio run towards the end of that thing just
You
felt
can barely remember that. Yeah.
so painful. Um, and it's just we're back to there, you know, and hopefully for Priest, because he has worked hard and whatnot. Hopefully he's able to have something that feels like a genuine run, but I don't know. I can see him getting transferred to SmackDown and just being lost in the shuffle over there.
I think Cody's going to be on SmackDown.
You think?
I think that's going to be it. I think they're going to have Cody on SmackDown and they'll have Damian Priest on Raw. I don't see it the other way around, but maybe they will. I don't know.
I mean,
I just think it feels like Cody will go to SmackDown.
I can't remember what is going first to Netflix. Are both Raw and SmackDown at the same time, or how long's the
Raw will
Fox
be
deal?
going to Netflix in 2025, and I think SmackDown is in the fall to USA.
Right. Okay. So, you know, they've got a little bit longer on SmackDown. So
They're
yeah, I
probably
guess
going
you
to,
probably want
they
Cody on
probably
there.
are going to draft people based on that because SmackDown will have a home in the fall on USA. I have no idea what they're doing with Raw when it leaves USA this fall because there is going to be a gap between them leaving and getting on Netflix in January of 2025.
Hmm.
So, don't know.
Okay.
We'll see.
Yeah. 6-man tag team Philadelphia Street Fight. The Pride defeated the Final Testament. I'm not gonna lie. I watched this last night, but I actually skipped this match because I only had a finite amount of time. And if I was going to skip anything on this card, it was that. So I have no takes on this thing.
Yeah, I mean, Bully Ray was out there. He always
Bully
seems
Ray
to
or
be.
Alex Jones? It's hard to tell.
I know he looks like Alex Jones now. He really does. They just had a. I don't care about the Final Testament. Karrion Kross just has this energy of like nothing. Nothing's interesting. You can put him with anyone. It's not interesting or compelling. There's nothing there, and you know the match itself was fine. There's weapons. There's nothing to much to write home about though, and I don't know. Then I think I think Lashley and his team won, and cool. But let's move on. I don't have much to talk about. It's just kind of a match with people I don't care about.
Yeah.
I like Lashley's team though. Something there with them.
Yeah, but like we've been, well, not we, but it does feel like the kind of general consensus for the last couple of years now is like, when is Montez Ford going to go off and do his own thing?
No, they kind of teased that last year, and then they didn't split them. I kind of feel, and I like Angelo Dawkins too. I don't think he should be lost in the shuffle or anything, but like, I do think there's more to them in singles than as a team at this moment because it feels like they're just kind of treading water. It's not like they're really like the big focus of SmackDown. Maybe if they get moved to Raw and maybe become a big part of Raw, maybe that would be like a bigger thing. But like right now, they just kind of feel lost in the shuffle. I don't like hate them or anything, but like they're just kind of there.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah, it's look, any promotion, any roster is going to have this issue. There's always at least one person you're going to be like, hey, like this guy should be doing more. But I feel like Montez Ford is like a bit more glaring than some of those others, and it feels like it's been the case now for quite some time as well. But there we are. LA Knight defeated AJ Styles in a shockingly entertaining match, and I only
I
say
was
this.
not I was not looking forward to this, and then it ended up being like a good match. I wouldn't say like really good, but like they had a
No,
good
no,
match.
entertaining, and I only say this
Yeah.
because like you think about AJ Styles and his WrestleMania matches. He managed to have a fairly disappointing match against Nakamura, and right, in fairness, that had to play off the fact that 2 years ago they had a fucking tremendous match at Wrestle Kingdom. He had a
Mhm.
fairly boring match against Edge at WrestleMania. He had a very boring match against Randy Orton at WrestleMania. He had just a nothing tag team match with Omos against the New Day. And then he had the fucking boneyard thing with The Undertaker, which is, whatever it is. And actually, the match with Jericho at Mania was fairly mid as well. And so up until this point, you're like, this guy's best match at WrestleMania was against Shane McMahon, and that seems
Yeah.
wrong. That seems like
AJ in this run in WWE is very hit and miss. Like sometimes you'll see a good match, sometimes it's like, I don't know. And then you
yeah.
see his new body transformation since he's returned, and it's like,
So
yeah,
yeah,
I get where you're going from here.
so I've not been watching SmackDown, and I haven't really been watching, like, I saw the Rumble, and I know that he came back and he was like obviously jacked there as well. But even
Yeah.
between then and WrestleMania, I feel like he's put on an extra 10 pounds,
Yeah, it's like he put on 20 pounds of muscle. like
and
he's
it's just like,
in the best shape of
how?
his career.
Well, it's just like,
And
how are
bigger.
you moving? Like
Yeah, like how he's
he's
moving.
almost turned into like late stage Randy Savage when he did the
Yeah.
what the fuck was his like thing at the end
He
of
had like a big
WCW?
old midlife crisis and completely changed his look and gained like 30 pounds of muscle and had Gorgeous George and
Yeah, yeah. And Styles is like not too far removed from that. He's probably around about the same age as well, in fairness.
probably
Um, but he looks insane. He looks fucking
does.
insane. And
Does.
he did the 450 splash in this match, and I was kind of surprised that he was able to pull that off.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, no, I feel this was like really competent, and like LA Knight really had his working boots on, and one of the kind of common criticisms about him has been that he's never really been the greatest worker, and I think that's a bit overblown to some degree. I think he's totally solid in the ring. He's just never been someone who is going to go out there and give you a 5-star classic, and that's just not his gimmick. That's not his thing. His thing is he's like the sports entertainment part of the wrestling, and he has his catchphrases and he has his charisma. But he can go in there and give you a 3 to 3.5 star match. And yeah, I thought this thing didn't outstay its welcome. Had crucially, because this wasn't too far removed from being like a blood feud as well, but was also a singles match like the USO match. But this had like a physicality and an intensity to it, and felt like two people trying to like knock lumps out of each other in a way that USO match just didn't even get out of first gear. So yeah, no, thumbs up for this. And like, this is probably one of the better AJ Styles matches that we've seen in some time. So you know, no real complaints here.
No, it was perfectly fine. It was actually pretty good. Um, much more to say beyond it other than it was really good, and we'll see where they go from here with both of them. I'm just still like kind of amazed. Like I totally had written off this match, and then it got a lot better. It ended up being a lot better than I thought it would.
WWE United States well, let's try it again. WWE United States title triple threat match. Logan Paul defeated Kevin Owens and Randy Orton in 17 minutes and 38 seconds in a fairly entertaining triple threat match. Logan Paul, kind of like Obafemi, but not quite. Someone who's had 10 matches, if that, in his career, and feels like someone who's just completely comfortable in the ring. Um, has a just a rare like natural charisma to him, but can go in the ring and has the athleticism to go with it. And yeah, like Kevin Owens and Randy Orton, there are a few points in this match where Kevin cracked me up and reminded me that Kevin is just like one of the more naturally funnier people that has ever been in a wrestling ring. And the bit like towards the start where Randy Orton does the backdrop onto the announce table, and then Kevin's like, "Oh, I'll have a crack at it then," and then he's not quite as good, and Randy's like, "You're not as tall as me, so you can't quite get the elevation." I thought it was tremendous, and Logan Paul was just kind of bouncing around like a rag doll. I have never heard of iShow Speed. I don't know who that is. Um, I really would have liked it if he'd have been, like busted open hard way. But hey, I'll take an RKO on the table, I guess. The thing about the RKO on the table, though, that I really enjoyed, I don't know if you remember, Brian, but do you remember WrestleMania 2014 or WrestleMania 30, where Randy Orton did the RKO to Daniel Bryan on the announcers table, but there was whatever kind of hard box like camera or whatnot,
Yeah.
and Orton did the RKO and his back went straight onto that like steel box, and you could see him immediately like that was fucking painful.
Yeah, I bet.
And so you could see him now like kind of swipe away just to double check that there was nothing that would like cause
Yeah.
injury to him.
Like he doesn't
But
want
yeah,
to
no,
grab
this was
up
good.
again.
This was good. What do you think?
Yeah, I thought that was it was a good. Um, not like the best match on either show, but like it was perfectly fine. I've always thought Logan Paul is tremendous as a wrestler. I'm kind of stunned by how good he is, and he was bumping around for both these guys. And this is very much a match um, where it was about beating up Logan Paul and Randy Orton and Kevin Owens being friends and turning on each other and doing spots and lots of spots and um, yeah, no, I thought it was pretty good. I don't know who the guy that they beat up was. I don't know who the guy that Randy Orton beat up. Like what's his name?
I show speed.
I show speed. Yeah, I had never heard of him until that time.
I've reached that point now in my life where I'm old enough
Me
that
too.
um yeah, the kids are watching these YouTube streamers and
Yeah,
influencers. And I get this as well. Like, I've done a couple of video game events and expos over the last 5 or 6 months showing off my game. And I'll be following the social media channels, and they'll be announcing a new like YouTuber or influencer every other day. It's just like, okay, this is a person. I don't know who this person is. And yeah, this is very much the case here as well. And like, the thing with Logan Paul and his brother is that while they are very much from that world, um, hey, look, they've got the prime drink that I've never drank and I never will. They've got
probably
the
not.
gimmicky
Me
boxing
too.
matches. They've they've found ways to really kind of take themselves from here to here. Um, in a way where a lot of the other kind of YouTubers and influencers, they have the video games and they have their conventions and whatnot. But um, yeah, like I'm sure Logan Paul is a person. He's probably an awful person, but the man's got hustle and a lot of money. So good for him.
Yeah, sure. Like I don't know what to think of him as a YouTuber or whatever, but there's a lot of criticism about him, and probably a lot of it's warranted. But I cannot deny that he is very good at being a pro wrestler and very good at not being liked.
Yeah. WWE Women's Title match. Bailey defeated Io Sky in 14 minutes and 22 seconds. I thought that this was better than the Becky Lynch Rhea Ripley match. And if you had asked me to put
Oh
a
yeah,
bet, like a bet my house on which of these two matches would be better, I would have definitely have gone for Rhea and Becky. Um, like Bailey has had a fairly tough time of it with injuries and whatnot over the last couple of years, and there's she has her physical shortcomings at this point, but I thought that and this is actually really interesting on the commentary. Corey Graves in particular was really kind of making a point of that. Io Sky has been the champion since like last August or something, but it's still probably like the most underrated like champion that they've got. And that's probably a fair point. Now, some of that, well, most of that is on them for just not giving her enough kind of compelling challenges to work with, or getting her on like the main shows. Because I don't know if she's even defended it on a pay per view since she won it. Um, But yeah,
I don't know.
I thought this was like a really, really solid match. And the only thing that was the letdown is that I'd never seen Bailey's new finisher before, but it doesn't work. Is the best way I can put it.
What is the rose plant?
The rose plant or the rosebud or whatever.
She's done it a few times.
I've never seen her do it before. This is the first time I'd seen it.
No, she usually does it in some of her big matches. It looks fine to me. I like it's something different at least. Um, the match was really good. I thought that this match was really good. I thought it was better than the night one title match. Uh, the last few minutes were really great. Bailey has always been a big like when it comes to like main events, she usually delivers. And Io Sky, I don't think she was put in like a ton of title matches over the last year, but with her run as champion. But every time I thought she did a good job, and she got a big high profile singles match here at WrestleMania, and well, both of them delivered. So kudos to them. Like I said earlier, I think that maybe they'll do one more match between these two, and then they'll probably go off their separate ways. So yeah, it's good stuff. I thought it was a really good match.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised by the result. I feel like EO is kind of the way you want to go. You want to really like push her. Because kind of Bailey really has done everything she can do in the company, but
At this point, yeah.
yeah. So I was a little bit surprised by that, but I'm sure it won't be the last time that Io Sky is a champion in the company. So
Oh yeah.
WWE title, WWE Universal title, Bloodline Rules match. Cody Rhodes defeats Roman Reigns in 33 minutes and 25 seconds to finally end the reign of Roman.
He finished the story.
He finished the story. I will say this before anything else. Having Triple H and Bruce Pritchard there at the end of this match didn't really
People
do much
didn't
for
like
me.
that.
Didn't
People
do
didn't
much
like
for
that.
me. Yeah.
Everything else was fantastic. This was definitely one of the better WWE matches of the year.
This, you know, like people have been talking over the weekend and I guess this week and maybe even like the last couple of weeks about like what this new era of WWE is and what do we call it. And this kind of really felt like the closest in terms of like trying to invoke that whole like attitude era that we've seen since then, really. You know, and I'm sure that whatever people end up calling this era, um, people are really looking at this as like the kind of connecting the connection between the attitude era, in terms of like reception, popularity, the crowds, the audiences, the general kind of momentum and vibe. And whether you agree or not, that's not really what the conversation is. But you know, if you go back and you watch any kind of attitude era main event, this kind of thing, what they did here is it's like a 1-to-1, um, which is not surprising because John Cena and The Rock and Undertaker are involved. Um, I will say this, something that really annoyed me, and again, you know, if you try and look at wrestling through the lens of like, well, if this was real, you probably wouldn't enjoy any wrestling match ever. But I was watching this, I was like, hang on, we had a 45-minute match yesterday with the
Yeah.
idea that Roman wanted to win because he would get bloodline rules. And then this match starts, and it's just him and Cody.
Yeah, for most of the match, it was just him and Cody having a wrestling match.
And it's
A
like,
very good wrestling match.
yeah, no,
Much
it
better than
was,
last night.
yeah. But I was like, you fucking spent, you know, 3/4 of an hour yesterday fucking around in the ring and outside the ring.
Establishing that this was going to be a match where there's 400 people running in. And they did, but they waited like 20, 30 minutes into this 40-minute match.
And it's like, the whole kind of gimmick of Roman has been over the last 4 years is that when he's on death's door in a match, a Jimmy Uso or a Jey Uso or a Solo Sikoa or whoever the fuck else appears right at the nick of time to save Roman and save his title match. And really, like, the storyline conclusion to this, if you're doing Bloodline Raws, is that all of those fuckers are out here at the start. And if you want to get to the point where you just have Cody and Roman one on one, which is what you should do, you should get to that as soon as possible. You should have had um, Jimmy and Solo out there from the get go, like, doing a kind of handicap beatdown. And
Like it
actually,
wasn't against the rules.
here's the other thing as well, right? Here's the other thing. Bloodline rules, as far as I can tell, just means no disqualification. Means there are no
Yeah.
rules. So what's the fucking problem with Cody getting back up? Because I'm sure he could, I'm sure Jay would come down and help. I'm sure, if Seth's knee, Seth did come out and got Yamchild straight away.
Yeah,
And it's like, Bloodline rules didn't mean that just only Roman could have people on his side. So, like, there were all of these kind of caveats to it where I was like, hang on. I'm being told that WWE are like the world best, the best when it comes to storytelling in professional wrestling.
yeah. You'll hear people who are diehard WWE fans. It's all about the story.
And all I'm seeing are just holes and logic gaps and a sense of like this is being made far more like complicated than it needs to be. And again,
But
some
what
of it
I thought I would see on this night is Roman Reigns coming out with all the bloodline, and then bring in a few more surprises during the match. Well, instead we just got like a 25-minute wrestling match, and then people ran in.
yeah. And like and this is kind of like why it actually probably is a perfect parallel to a lot of like the late 90s attitude era, because there are actually so many logic holes when you go back and look at some of that, and it's purely just about like the entrances and the pops and all of those kind of bits, but the actual kind of moments in between are sort of just like left up to your own interpretation to try and make sense of it, and it isn't really possible. So while I do think that the match as a whole, in terms of the energy and the emotion and the general in ring quality, was all there, I just, as soon as the bell rang, I was like, wait a second, this is Bloodline Rules, but that doesn't actually mean anything other than it's no DQ, and
Yeah,
there's no other fucker out here. What was the point of the match last night? Um, and that just kind of really annoyed me. So
yeah.
yeah. As a match, though, you got the spectacle and you got the end result, and Cody wins, and Samantha Irvine did a screaming, growling, crying thing, which annoyed me, and
People really like that. I am kind of in the middle of it. Like I kind of get like you want to convey the emotion of Cody winning because it is a big 2-year storyline that they finally wrapped up, and it's everyone's emotional. It's a big moment. I can understand that. It is a little much, but I can understand it.
there are some matches where she's announcing people and it works, and then there are just some where it sounds incredibly forced.
Chelsea
And
Green.
yeah. So
I don't know if I like that.
but she's not going anywhere anytime soon, so
No, they like her.
yeah.
It doesn't matter to me really. Whatever. She's
She's not
fine.
the think, but who is.
No, yeah.
And yeah, and so we ended with the big celebration at the end. Um, Overall thoughts on this year's WrestleMania?
I mean, everyone left very happy. It was a much happier ending than last year, where they just had that flat finish and everyone was sad and everyone left. So I mean, that's definitely a thumbs up. I thought last year's show had like better matches up and down the card. a lot of the matches on these nights were kind of just there, or okay, or good, but not like great. But the two highlights are Sami Zayn winning the Intercontinental title, and of course Cody winning the WWE title. And there's a lot of we did kind of pick apart the match in terms of logic, but in terms of like execution and what they needed to do, and having the Rock and Stone Cold. No, actually not Stone Cold. Everyone thought it was going to be Stone Cold when the Rock came out and laid out Cena, but it was the Undertaker who laid out the Rock. All that was really cool, and the Shield music hit, and they called back to when Seth turned on the Shield, and with Roman hitting Seth with a steel chair, and Seth selling it like Roman did like 10 years ago, which is amazing to me. I can't believe that was 10 years ago, nearly 10 years ago. Everything about that. There's like a bunch of callbacks. There's like a lot of cool moments. The wrestling was really good. This is one of my favorite WWE matches in some time, actually. Maybe like since like Chad Gable and Gunther had their match, and it was really good. And I really enjoyed that main event and that Made Night too. I enjoyed WrestleMania. I thought it was the really good stuff was really really good. So I think that's a thumbs up.
Yeah, I think night one was a real slog.
Night two was way better.
It does seem to be with these 2 night WrestleManias that at least one of the nights is a bit of a slog, and then the other one turns out to be
Yeah.
okay. And it's
And that's
probably
fine because I would much prefer that over sitting there for 8 hours.
yeah. Well, in a perfect world, you'd probably just have a 5-hour show with the best bits of both nights and leave it at that. But
Yeah.
it does seem like these 2 night manias are a thing here to stay. And in fairness, if you can fill out a 70,000 seat
Yeah, you can
stadium
fill
two
it out
nights
with
in a row,
70,000 people for 2 nights. I mean, go for it.
go for it. Exactly. So, I guess it'll be curious to see at some point, did they decide to make like SummerSlam 2 nights in a row? Who knows?
That would be too much.
You say that.
No, I keep WrestleMania 2 nights. That's why
I'm not saying I
WrestleMania
want this,
stands out.
Brian. I'm just saying that they really like making money at the moment.
It reminds me of when New Japan got really hot, and all of a sudden we got like this huge G1. The G1 used to be like 2 weeks, now it's a month, and like that's what bogged everything down, because now you're just focusing on getting content out, and now it's like I don't
It's
even want to get
endless
into New
amounts of
Japan right
growth,
now.
Brian. Growth and content.
Growth and content. I'm ready for this era of growth and content, and needing both. I'm ready for it to move on.
Yeah.
I mean, we are like at this era where we can watch anything we want. Like 10 years ago, we couldn't watch CMLL on Fridays live. We couldn't watch New Japan live. And now we can. And it's just like way too much going on.
Yeah.
New
Did
Japan's
you
running so many shows.
did you see either of the CMLL AEW
I
matches?
watched the first one. I wanted to watch the second one, and I watched parts of it, but there's 10 million things going on, so I didn't. But
Yeah. I haven't seen
I
Panther
love
and
that
Brian
first
yet.
match.
Yeah, the
I,
eight
I, I
man?
yes,
Yeah.
I love that. It's
Yeah.
so fun to watch. Like watching CMLL on Fridays is really fun, because you go there and there's a bunch of colorful people wrestling, and the wrestling's really good, and you can see how big the crowd is. The crowd for that match was huge. I mean, there was some like 17,000 people there, and everyone was. You can see it because it was brightly lit, and the match was good. The stuff with Brian Danielson. I don't know why it says WWE name, and Blue Panther. That stuff was cool. Just a really fun match. Just something different. And then, yeah, it's just fun watching Arena Mexico stuff, because the crowd's hot too. I think that's the biggest thing. Like I haven't watched a ton of CMLL lately. and I just watched AAA, and AAA just it's a complete mess all the time. And so it's kind of nice to watch this and not like think about like how bad AAA is, because CMLL is a lot better. I just don't have the time to watch it. I think that's the big problem.
Yeah, I'm not as big on CMLL as other people, and part of that, admittedly, obviously, is the language barrier is a factor there. But I do find with quite a few of the matches that I watch that are like the big matches is that they really struggle with the kind of like the peak of the match. You'll see like just unbelievable wrestling up and down the card and up and down in the matches, but the ending of matches just does seem to kind of come out of nowhere.
Yeah,
And maybe that's like a kind of thing I need to sort of, there's a conditioning where I expect matches to kind of peak in a particular way. And maybe Lucha just doesn't work like that. And maybe Lucha
yeah.
does more of the kind of MMA, like, hey, a match kind of end at any time, and I need to kind of get into that mindset.
From what I've seen, I feel like there's a different mentality there about building to a finish than in like Japan or in the United States. I think there is something a little bit different there.
Yeah.
From what I've seen. I'm
Um,
not a Mexico expert.
no,
I
no.
just know what I watch.
Yeah.
I do feel like
So,
it's a little bit different.
but that 8 man was just incredible in terms of the crowd, like for sure. Um, you know, uh, Arena Mexico is just one of those venues. It's like a Hurricane Hall. Like if you had that as your venue every week, like when AEW at Daily's Place. But hey, in this instance, there's actually a crowd they can fill it with.
Yeah. My
Um,
main take from watching that show is like I want to go to Mexico City and go to
yeah,
that arena because it seems like a lot of fun.
yeah. How far would that be for you from where you are?
Mexico City, that's still a long way. Like if I can go to Mexicali, that's like 40 minutes away. But like Mexico City, I think is a little bit farther. I've never seen how far away I am from it. I can check it out. Probably very, very. I think it's way down there. So I think I would still require like a flight.
Once again, my understanding of American geography is quite limited.
Let's see. Uh, let's see. It would be. It's like 1,378 miles. It's very far away.
Yes, fair enough. Take a
That's
flight.
well, yeah. Take a flight. Yeah, maybe one of these anniversary shows or something, or the next big AEW match.
Yeah.
They go with friends.
Yeah, I definitely like to go at some point.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess that's kind of it really. We've covered NXT, we've covered WrestleMania. Um, they've got Backlash coming in France next. They've got quite a few international shows this year actually.
A lot of the premium live events are in other countries.
Yeah, a lot of money they're going to be making this year.
Yeah.
Couldn't happen to a nicer bunch of fellas.
Yeah. I guess
Yeah,
they got the
yeah.
main problem out. The
Well,
problem is
I think there's still a few
more
more
than him
problems they're
though.
going to get rooted out over the next couple of years or so.
Probably.
Yeah. Well, look, we're going to leave
I
it there for
guess.
now. While we're here, I should probably kind of bring some news up as well, as Brian is aware from talking earlier. This is going to be my last show, at least for the time being, at least anyway. Um, as some of you know, and as I've kind of mentioned on the show today as well, I am making a video game at the moment. And you'll be stunned to know that making a video game takes up quite a lot of time, and I simply I just don't have time to watch much wrestling at the moment. And
It's why we
even
didn't cover March. I've already forgotten about March.
yeah,
March is
yeah,
not
just not a
relevant
chance.
right now.
And even like the wrestling that I do watch a lot of the time is just kind of on in the background. So um, the usual like kind of in-depth amount of like wrestling and the amount of content like that I would watch on a monthly basis is just not there at the moment, and it's not coming back anytime soon. And I do feel like my priorities are in the right place by focusing more on the video game than watching a bunch of wrestling. So for the time being, at least, I'm kind of out of the picture. I don't know what your plans will be, Brian. We didn't actually kind of discuss like what the
Uh,
future plans for this podcast will
I
be.
don't know. For right now, I might just move stuff to YouTube and maybe focus more. No, maybe not such long form like this, but maybe a little bit more short form stuff,
Mm,
and talk about stuff, major news in the pro wrestling world, major shows. That maybe I'll just pivot to YouTube more
yeah.
for the time being, and then when we're ready to pick up again, we could just go ahead and do this again.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, for anyone listening, my game Axes hopefully will be out early next year. So we'll see where we are at that time. You can follow me on Twitter at Lithium Project if you're interested and want to know more about it. And you can find me in the Voices of Wrestling podcast Discord channel. I'm in there. You can find me in there if you want to DM me or whatnot. But you know what, Brian, it's been a blast doing this.
Has been.
I thank you again for coming on board with this venture. When kind of like, this was originally a sort of side or sister podcast we were doing in the Link to the Cast network, and then Dave went off and did his wrestling podcast, and I was like, well, I still want to keep doing this. So I reached out to Brian, and Brian was very kind of grateful and gracious to give me some of his time every month. So, Brian, just want to say a massive thank you to you for doing this with me once a month.
Yeah, no problem. I enjoy doing it. I enjoy talking about pro wrestling. So, yeah, I mean, you said gracious. I am very gracious that you brought me on board to talk about this for the last couple of years. It's been very fun talking to you. It's been fun talking about pro wrestling, even though some of the stuff here and there isn't great to talk about, but we still talk about it.
That is pro
Um,
wrestling, unfortunately.
that is pro wrestling, and that is where we kind of live right now, where everything, well, all the major stuff and all the most popular stuff is stuff about bad things. So at least we have a chance to talk about everything in pro wrestling and all the matches and other stuff that maybe isn't most popular out of everything to talk about in pro wrestling, but at least we get to talk about it and we got to talk about it in depth.
Yeah,
So yeah,
for sure.
it's been real fun.
So, to everyone that's listened over the last couple of years, thank you very much, or watched on YouTube. We very much have appreciated it. If we have any updates, or if Brian has any updates, I'm sure he'll let you know over on
Yeah.
at BR26 on the old Twitter machine. But that's it for now. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you when we see you. So until then, take it easy and take care. Bye bye.
Goodbye.